That's awesome. I'm glad they are having a good time. Okay. There we go. All right, so we have, I have did I turn the thing on? Did it go? Okay, cool. I got a laser pointer too. Okay, ready? All right. Blessed are you, Jehovah our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to engross ourselves in the words of the Torah. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav vetzivanu la'asak ben v'rei Torah. And that's me. Boop. Please, Jehovah, make the Torah's words sweet in my mouth and in the mouth of all your people, the house of Israel. May we, your children, all of Israel, know your name and the name of your Messiah, Yeshua. And may we study your Torah simply because it is good. Blessed are you, Yehovah, who gave us the Torah of truth in our daily dose. We who live in the shelter of Elyon, who spend our nights in the shadow of Shaddai, who say to Adonai, our refuge, our fortress, our God in whom we trust. He will rescue us from the trap of the hunter and from the plague of calamities. He will cover us with his pinions, and under his wings we will find refuge. His truth is a shield and protection. We will not fear the terrors of night, or the arrow that flies by day, or the plague that roams in the dark, or the scourge that wreaks havoc at noon. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it won't come near us. Only keep our eyes open, and we will see how the wicked are punished. For we have made Adonai, who is the Most High, our dwelling place. No disaster will happen to us, no calamity will come near our tent, for he will order his angels to care for us and guard us wherever we go. They will carry us in their hands so that we won't trip on a stone, and we will tread down lions and snakes, young lions and serpents we will trample underfoot. Because he loves me, I will rescue him. Because he knows my name, I will protect him. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him when he is in trouble. I will extricate him and bring him honor, and I will satisfy him with long life and show him my salvation. So there's a couple of things, not a couple, but maybe like two things, but maybe that's a couple. So there's a couple of things. You guys can sit down. Up here where it says, his truth is a shield and protection. Just put that in the back of your thinking cap. And then also down here where it says, I will satisfy him with long life, okay, and show him my salvation. We know the salvation part, but the long life part, we might have a different perspective on it after today. All right, so I come to you today as a work in progress. I don't have any letters after my name unless I just do all initials, then it's just all letters, but anyway, I am still just a servant who is trying to figure out how to commune with my Father up in heaven. And today I am going to bring I don't know if you want to call it a lesson, but hopefully it's thought-provoking for you. Those of you who know me, I'm more of a, I don't want to condemn anybody. I will, if God tells me to. But I'm more of like a thought-provoking. Like I want to try and help other people figure out how to look inward or to look for an answer. And that kind of comes from years as being an Army instructor, is where I can't teach you how to critically think, but what I can do is put you in situations or give you ideas to help kind of exercise your thought process, right? Aside from when you go on to YouTube and you type in, why is my air conditioner not working, right? The best way to find the answers is to go and find the answers, right? Instead of just having something feeding it to you, right? So the title of my message to you today is called Truth. Right? And I think this is a more pertinent subject matter today maybe than it has ever been. Not saying that truth has never been important, because it's always important to know the truth, but I think today more so than even a decade ago, truth is more important, and it's also more precious and harder to find these days, especially given the advancement of technology, where people can create artificial intelligence videos, and it really looks like whoever they made a video about is saying those things. There's been a couple of them. I'm sure people have seen them floating around out there. If not, just Goggle it, or whatever you want to, whatever search engine you use on the internet. You can find all kinds of fake videos. There's even some people, put your tinfoil hats on, who don't believe we went to the moon. I'm not saying we did. I'm not saying we didn't. But the truth will come out in the wash. So in the end, when we meet up with our Creator, I'm pretty sure you could probably ask a couple of questions, but they might be irrelevant at that point, right? Did we go to the moon? He'd be like, no, you guys did not. So anyway, we'll start off with just a definition of truth, right? Now, I just straight up pulled this off of Google, so that way anybody who might be watching online, this doesn't get convoluted. If you just go to Google and type in definition of truth, you'll get something to the effect of the quality or state of being true. That's not really that helpful. That which is true or in accordance with fact or reality. That's the important kind of piece of that definition. And then, of course, the last part is a fact or belief that is accepted as true. And I have a problem with that last one, the part being accepted. Okay? I can tell you that the building is on fire. Whether you accept that or not is up to you. It will come very apparent when the smoke starts billowing in and it gets real hot, and then you see the flames. Just because you didn't accept it doesn't mean that it's not true. So we're gonna delve a little bit further into this, right? So in the beginning, Yehovah gave us the truth in the form of his son, Yeshua. And in John 14:6, he says, Yeshua said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So he already gave us the truth, capital letters and all that stuff, right? It seems like that would be pretty simple, right? But as we see over time and over history, and things have even been recorded, man, not to say that only man, but man, the creation of man, has tainted God's truth, right? Now, a lot of times I struggle with the question of, like, if God is so powerful that he created everything we see, and we're gonna get into that in a few slides, in a couple verses, right? He created everything we see. Why would he let some person taint his truth? You would think, as the creator of the universe, if somebody even had the thought, like, you know what, I'm going to change this around a little bit, that God would, like, send a tornado to pick him up so he can be, and then lightning would come out of nowhere and then throw him in a volcano, right? But it has a purpose. It has a purpose. If he gave us the truth and we accepted it as the truth and we just lived our lives by that, everything would be great, right? But how would that measure up if we didn't seek him, right? We would just expect everything, right? You kind of have to liken it unto a child. If you condition that child and you say, if you sit at the table every morning at 8 o'clock, I will have a bowl of cereal for you. And they go, okay, cool. So the next day they wake up, 8 o'clock, a bowl of cereal, bing bong. Mom told the truth, right? Or dad told the truth. Moms probably make better breakfast. I do cereal. And then the next day they wake up, 8 o'clock, bowl of cereal. Next day, 8 o'clock, bowl of cereal. Next day, 8 o'clock, bowl of cereal. Everything's great, right? But what if one morning they woke up 8 o'clock, there was no bowl of cereal? Would would they still be faithful in thinking that mom's going to put a bowl of cereal at 8 o'clock? If you missed one, say mom wasn't feeling good or dad wasn't feeling good, right? So what I'm trying to say is, how good would your relationship be if that's what you had was the truth and nothing ever challenged it? Okay? So we're gonna get a little bit deeper into that. I just want to kind of put that in the forefront of your mind, right? Because we're going to talk about truth, right? What is truth based on? And if we follow kind of the scientific method, which I believe that God did give us the scientific method, where we test things and we get the same result over and over and over and over, it becomes a fact, right? So, a fact is a thing that is known to be true. So we can kind of see this cycle of truth, fact, right? So we have, it's kind of a paradox, given that truth depends on facts and facts depend on truth, right? So it's a bit of a cycle, but it's also a bit of a paradox. If you take one of those elements out, then the other one will fail, right? A hot stove will burn you, fact. I don't know if anybody's ever done that. I would highly recommend at least try it once in your life so that you can experience it. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But if the stove is hot and you put your hand on it, it will burn you. It is hot. That is a fact. Do it 10 times, you'll get the same result. It is now a rule, right? Don't touch the hot stove. So that fact has become truth, okay? So the reality is that truth is based off of fact, and fact is based off of information, right? Information. Again, back to the hot stove. The information is your nerves are telling your brain, ow, this hurts, move your hand, dummy, right? So the information is there, and it is consistent. Every time you touch the stove, it will be hot. Your nerves will say, ow, move, before we get seriously hurt. Your brain reacts, you move your hand, right? Now, what do we know about information, right? In this day and age, we know that information is it's a very powerful thing, and it can be used in either a good way or a bad way. So information equals facts, right? And facts equals truth. So I bet you guys didn't know we were going to learn a little bit of algebra today, but we're going to do it. But I'm here to go through it with us, right? So I have a quote up there that the first casualty when war comes is truth. And if you didn't know, there is a war happening right now. Right now, there's a war going on. And I'm not talking about capital U country, right? What I'm talking about is there's a war going on for your mind, for your soul, for your body, for your effort, for everything that you are, your wholeness of your being. There's a war. The devil wants to steal you and keep you stolen from your Creator, who is still there, right? And I am so glad that our Abba is still on the throne and still in control. Even though this world is spinning out of control, who cares? Not my problem, right? I am here as a faithful servant to do whatever mission he hands down to me. So if he hands me down a mission and he says, go and take $100 and give it to this person because they need it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And if he says, go and fix this person's house or this person's car or this person's whatever, I'm going to do it because he's on the throne. He's our Abba. He's our commander, right? You don't go against stuff like that, especially when he created the entire universe. And we've seen a couple of instances in the Bible where people were disobedient and he just struck them dead. There was a couple times in there where he made the earth open up and people fell in there. I don't want to be in that crowd. I would rather just do what he tells me to do, right? Because it's for good. So anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a sidebar. So an example of information being used in a good way or a bad way, right? We've seen lots of good ways, right? Hey, if you go to this place at this time, they're giving out free food, right? If I was to tell you, I have the winning numbers for next week's lottery, I'm pretty sure that'd be a good thing for a lot of you guys and gals out there. Now, information used in a bad way, right? I wasn't around during this time. Maybe one or two of you were, but I think it was in the 50s time frame, in that era, when they said that smoking was good for you. Because based on the recent study of blah, 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 I don't know, they said smoking is good for you. And by the way, take a spoonful of mercury as well, because it's good for your stomach, right? Now, for those of you listening on the internet, don't do those things. That's bad for you, right? Mercury is a poison. It is a poison. It doesn't matter if they mix it with something else and call it something else and then inject it through needles into your body. Smoking is bad for you. You're not supposed to inhale smoke. If you've ever gone camping, you will find that out, especially if you're like me and the smoke just follows you around no matter where you sit. Burns your eyes, burns your lungs, makes you cough. It's not good for you, right? Causes cancer, especially when you put carcinogenic things in there. But that's an example of how information was used in a bad way, right? And I wasn't there. I wasn't in these labs during these tests, so I don't know if it was just completely fabricated, but they put that out as fact. They put it out as information. Then they'd come back later and be like, ooh, okay, so don't eat mercury, and we got to put all these warnings on the cigarette packages because they do cause cancer. It is bad for you. We don't know what Carl was doing on Monday when he did those tests, but it's bad, right? So they come back and retract that information because it was bad information, right? Now, how does man use information? The human population uses information in a couple of different ways. Sometimes we use it for studies, right? And sometimes those studies come out and we find out that the initial opinion or whatever it was incorrect because we've ran 100 tests and we got the same result every time. And so-and-so's postulation was wrong. Okay, the stove is hot, all right? You are not supposed to put foil in the microwave. So different things like that. And we could go down rabbit holes all day long on bad information, right? Another way that information is used is as a form of control. Okay, and how is that, right? Okay, so let's explore an example of control, right? Informational control. There's a word out there, and I hope I don't get us in trouble with YouTube, but I'm going to throw this word out there: propaganda. There has been so much propaganda going on in the world. And I'm not talking about just, the last couple years or whatever, but there's propaganda that happens in certain countries where they literally think that us Americans eat our young, like for breakfast or dinner or whatever. It's a propaganda. It's spreading bad information to affect someone's opinion or someone's thought process with relation to whatever the subject matter is, right? I was just, it was popped into my head the other day where everybody's seen the whole news thing about the smoke coming down from Canada, which if you live in Canada, please stop burning things. It makes it smell weird here. But the news was saying this toxic smoke is coming from Canada. It's toxic. Okay, why is it toxic? It's trees and grass and stuff, and some pine needles. I'm sure there's probably a few aluminum cans that burned in the forest fire. I hope they stop. I really do. But why is it? It's just regular smoke, right? It's not any more toxic than your campfire or you're, we do bonfires out in the backyard sometimes and roast marshmallows and stuff like that. But it's not. Why is it toxic? It's not toxic. It's just smoke, right? I'm sure there are some toxic things that happen there. It burns plastic and stuff like that, but it's not. It's just a forest fire, right? But with that information, they were telling individuals, entire towns and cities and stuff like, don't go outside, stay in your house. Okay, so I kind of operate off the principle of common sense. The air in my house comes from outside in my house. There's not a separate atmosphere in my house. The only place I'm aware that actually happens is in space, like the space station. If they open the door, then the air on the in goes to the out, and it's gone forever because there's a lot of space out there with no air, right? So when you apply common sense or something like that, and you go, okay, they're telling me to stay in my house. Well, the air that's outside comes into your house from the outside to the inside. So where does the toxins stop? Like at the door? Are they, is your screen door just keeping them out there like, hey, what's up? And you're like, oh, stay out there. I don't like you. You're nasty. The news said you were bad for me. No, that's not how it works. So information is control. With that information, they controlled entire cities, entire populations, and they said, stay in your houses, stay in there. It's dangerous to go outside. Okay. How many people fell? Not fell for it, but how many people were like, oh my gosh, did you hear we're supposed to stay inside? Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. Called my mom. Mom, you need to stay inside the house. She's probably looking at me like, boy, you are dumb. You go outside. It's the same air outside that it is in your house, right? Now, we do have some amenities in our house, like the candle warmers, and they make it smell better and stuff. It just masks it. But the fact is that information is used as a form of control, right? And with control comes power. That relationship is there, right? So if you can control the information, you can control, you have power over people. Now, I have a picture up here. I tried to kind of make it not too big, but, whatever. But the bottom right, you can see, does anybody know what that is right off the bat? Anybody remember that photo? What is it? Well, I mean, there's probably a tank somewhere in the back there. That's the picture of the statue of Saddam Hussein getting pulled down in the kind of the middle-ish of Baghdad. I happened to be there when this happened. Now, stay with me here. In the background, you can see, let me use this fancy laser. In the background here, you can see there's a bunch of local nationals, people that live there in Baghdad, Iraqis. There's a couple of Marines scattered about, right? Now, it's interesting because I'm going to tell you a story, and maybe some of you know this, maybe some of you don't, but you'll learn something today. This right here, this little piece that's hooked to the chain that pulled the statue over, that's a tow hook from a wrecker or recovery vehicle from the Marine Corps. And I love the Marines. I'm not saying anything bad about any Marines ever. Man, them guys are good at breaking stuff and killing things. And they are good at it, and I love them for that. That's a hook from a wrecker truck, right? Like a recovery vehicle, like come and lift your tank up and take it back and, replace the spark plugs or whatever. Now, when this happened, okay, there was some U.S. guys, there was some Marines, and there was some PSYOPs people there, right? And the Marines, being good at what they do, breaking stuff, saw that statue, and they're like, you know what? Doom on that guy. Let's pull that statue down. Cool. I'm kind of a firm believer in don't glorify people that did horrible things like that to other human beings. But I'm also kind of the thing, like, I don't go to my neighbor's house, and just because I don't like his Chevy Lumina, I don't go over there and smash it up, kind of the respect of other people's property. We're in a foreign country here. Probably the last thing we should be doing is breaking stuff that doesn't need to be broken. However, comma, ... pause for effect. The PSYOPs guys were like, okay, let's use this opportunity. So they gathered up a bunch of local national people, because every time the U.S. military would roll through a place, people would come out of the woodworks and, give me water, give me food, mister. And, people, bottles of water, and like, please don't throw rocks at us, and things like that. And obviously it wasn't rocks, but they were all around. And so the PSYOPs folks came out and they said, hey, look, everybody, come around. We'll give you food, we'll give you water. They were handing out stuff, and a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there, right? So they got this big crowd going, and they're like, okay, Marines, you're up. So they were like, all right, cool, we got this. Put the chain around it, pulled it down. Everybody's cheering because they got free food and water and a couple dollars in the U.S. And guess what it looked like? It looked like the Iraqis were tired of the iron fist of Saddam Hussein, and they pulled his statue down. The truth was that a couple of highly motivated Marines just got tired of looking at that dumb thing and decided they wanted to pull it down. But some men decided to make it look like something else. Because at that point, Saddam had already been gone for a while. So if they really hated him that much, they would have already pulled it down when he was captured and then later on executed and stuff. But it was a very powerful thing, right? They were like, yeah, the Iraqis were tired of him too. They didn't care. They were just trying to scratch out a living. As long as he didn't throw him in the pit with the lions, they didn't care, right? But you can see how affecting the information and fabricating facts was able to create that level of motivation and that level of power. And I'm sure that was like, I'm sure there was more things where they're like, we need to send more Americans over there to help these poor people out because they were tired of being under that regime and da-da-da-da. And I'm sure some of them were. I'm not saying none of them were. But you can see how eliminating part of the picture changes the facts, which changes the information that all these people were just here because they were given free food and water, and a couple of them, I think they were giving out like money and stuff too, right? Was able to kind of create this thing, right? This idea that those people were tired of Saddam Hussein and they wanted to pull a statue down, and it was epic moment in history, but it wasn't. It was phony. It was fake, right? No different than when you anybody ever seen those magic shows where they like the girl comes out, and she's dressed all pretty and gets in the box and the guy saws it in half and you're like, what in the world? And then he puts a box and she's wiggling and still waving her arms and her feet are wiggling and she's in two pieces and stuff. And then you watch that one show that comes after called like Revealing the Magic or whatever, and you find out that she's actually really good at folding herself in half, and there was a second person in the box with the feet wiggling out, and the whole thing is just a big illusion, right? So sleight of hand, tricks, it's things that happen like that. So in the mainstream society, information is power, and with it, you can control entire populations. You can control entire news cycles and things like that because everybody just jumps in on it and they want to say the same thing. So that way, if we say it enough, it's true. This is something, and maybe I'm not a psychologist, so I can't say this for sure, but I know somebody, I won't say his name, who did this, but he was pretty much a pathological liar, to the point where he said things so many times that that was how it was. It was true. And no matter how many times we were like, bro, I was there. That's not how that went down. You weren't even there. And yeah, I was, And to the point where it was like we were ready to throw blows at each other, But it's crazy how how lies and stuff like that. You got false news reports. You got fake people out there who dress up as things that they are not, right? And some of them it's obvious, and then some of them is not so obvious, right? And they trick people, and then they end up on a talk show. But a lot of people have used information to control people for their own purposes, and the big thing is where it comes in is money and power, right? I'm sure we could all probably think of how you could influence an entire population into doing something for money, right? And it has to do with tweaking whatever it is you're talking about or advertising or whatever to affect people's psychological process, right? How they think about stuff. Anybody ever seen, we won't talk about the obvious one that's on everybody's mind, but I will say this. Anybody ever seen the commercials for ice cream? Remember anybody? I don't know. Most of the commercials now is like all pharmaceuticals, and the burgers, right? Burger King and McDonald's and all those food commercials and stuff. And I don't know if anybody's ever looked at it, but the food that they portray in those commercials is not actually food, some of it. It's like the mayonnaise on the sandwich is actually caulking for your window. But real mayonnaise, if you let it set out for too long, doesn't look appealing anymore after about 30 minutes of being out of the fridge, right? Most of the time when you see the advertisements for ice cream, it's not actually ice cream. It's mashed potatoes or instant potatoes because they're creamy and they stay in the shape that they, put it on the cone or whatever and make it look good, right? What is it? What do you got? Zeke's got an example. That's a good one. I forgot about that one. He said in the commercials when they show you the Eggo waffles, it's actually motor oil that they're pouring on it, not syrup. Don't do that at home, obviously. But you can kind of go to see how like the lengths that they will go to show you something to convince you to buy it. Right? Because if I look at that and I'm like, man, I like waffles and I like syrup and I like waffles covered in syrup, I'm going to go to Food Lion or whatever the local grocery store is. I'm going to give me some daggone Eggo waffles and put some syrup on them, right? You just put money in the coffers for that company. It worked, right? And I'm not saying that that's bad. If you like waffles, go for it. If you're diabetic, maybe try the motor oil. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Okay, it was a bad joke. But, right? But that's how truth is manipulated and information and facts are manipulated to gain power, money, and cause you to think a different way about something, right? Now, in a more controversial light, and I'll try not to say any words that get us in trouble on YouTube, there are people who, and I'm sure you all will know what I'm talking about, identify as things that they are not, right? There are people who are trying to identify as different species that they are not. And I mean, sometimes it's funny. My daughter was telling me a story about this person who identified as a cat, and it was causing problems in the classroom. And if I remember right, I think my comment was like, if you come to my classroom and tell me you're a cat, I'm going to put out a bowl of milk and a litter box, and that's what you're going to use. If you want to play the game, you got to play for keeps. Because other than that, it's just a shenanigan, right? It's just a shenanigan. So there are people who are just inventing stuff out there, right? And the reason that that's happening, we're going to get into in just a second. Boop. Okay, so whose truth do you follow, right? Now, I'll give you a hint. There's only one that is correct, okay? There's only one. All the other so-called truths can be proven otherwise. They can be proven incorrect, or their meanings don't make any sense, and they're not God-based, right? And a lot of times, and I really enjoy the stories where so-and-so scientist is going to prove that God doesn't exist and that aliens are out there and all this other stuff. And they go through this long process and all these studies and everything, and they're looking at stuff with a microscope and a telescope, and sometimes they point the microscope at the telescope, and then they end up proving that God is real. I don't think that was a mistake. It was a mistake on their part. It was not a mistake on his part, right? So since Yehovah gave us the way, the truth, and the life, he made it really, really simple for us to believe in him. Literally, he gave us all the answers right here in the book, right? In the Torah, in what he gave us, right? And it's easy for us to be able to believe in him, but it's really hard to believe that an all-powerful God created the entire universe. Is it, though? Is it? There are people out there who, they're blind, for one, right? Not literally blind, but they are blind in their mind, in their spirit. They have the veil of disillusionment over their face, and they go, why in the world would God create an entire universe and then just put people on one planet? Right? And I would offer this to you, right? Just as thought-provoking. If we believed that God was all-powerful, nothing was out of his grasp, but he only created one solar system, at some point, an entire people would probably go, if he's super powerful, why did he only create one solar system? Why not two? Why not three? Why not all of them? Why not infinite? And now guess what? Just like technology can create fake videos, there are a few people out there who are looking for something. They don't know what it is. It's God. But they're looking for something, and they have a telescope out there. I forget what the name of it is, but it can see beyond our galaxy, beyond our all kinds of comprehension sometimes and understanding. And there are galaxies out. There's clusters of galaxies, and there's clusters of whatever is bigger than that out there. And they're seeing far, far, far. And by using math, they can kind of deduce that these far, far, far galaxies are like, I don't even know what the number is. A bazillion? Is that a real number? I don't know. I'm going to coin it today. It's a bazillion light years away. Uncomprehensible how far away this stuff is. You know what that doesn't really jive with? That the universe is like 1 billion years old. That's only a couple of zeros. We have more deficit in our country than there are years that the earth has been, if you prescribe to that fact, right? So is it that hard to believe that God created an all-powerful God, created a universe that we still haven't found the edge of? That's more believable. That's more believable. I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. I don't know who you put your faith in, but I know I'm putting mine in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because we still haven't found the edge of what he created, right? And even if you want to say, like those people that are like, well, I believe God created the earth in just 6 literal days, 24-hour time periods, blah, blah, blah. That's still pretty impressive. Okay, take a step further. In the word where it says that he views a day as 1,000 years and 1,000 years as a day. Okay, I don't know how much I could get accomplished in 1,000 years, but I can't make stuff and go put it bazillions of light years out there, come back, make another one, go the opposite direction, come back. It doesn't work. The math doesn't work out. So is it that hard to believe that he is an all-powerful God and that he created everything that ever was and ever will be? It's not that hard. Okay. Now, one of the other things that I like to share with people as part of truth is that, and this is how I kind of tie in the universe to it all, is everything that he created has a purpose, right? And I kind of came to that conclusion when I hate mosquitoes, and I was like, man, if I had a magic lamp and I rubbed that lamp and the guy came out and was like, I give you one wish, and be like, kill all the mosquitoes, right? But then what would the bats eat and the frogs and the fish that live in the little water things that eat the mosquito larvae, right? So everything has a purpose, right? Even flies have a purpose. They're part of the system that breaks things down, right? They're part of the decomposition process. So if they weren't here, then whatever the gross things that they do wouldn't get done, and it would just pile up over time. Anybody ever have a friend or live in a house where the person didn't take the trash out regularly? It gets pretty bad, right? So everything has a purpose. Now, some people do choose to make their own truth, and I'll tell you this right now. This might be part of my condemnation. That is akin to idolatry when you create your own truth, right? And I'm going to tie it together, so stay with me here. In Jeremiah, when he's describing the restoration of Israel, it describes people coming from the ends of the earth and saying what they inherited. And it says in Jeremiah 16:19, it says, Adonai, my strength, my fortress, my refuge in time of trouble. The nations will come to you from the ends of the earth and say, our ancestors inherited nothing but lies, futile idols, and completely useless, right? And then in 16:20 it goes on and it says, can a person make himself gods? In fact, they aren't gods at all. And then in verse 21 it says, therefore I will make them know once and for all. I will make them know my power and my might. They will know that my name is Adonai. So people create their own gods. Can they? And he said, no, you can't, because that's idolatry. Now, in creating their own truths, they became their own god or idol, and therefore became useless, right? So, now let me kind of tie a couple of things together, right? When you create your own truth, and you say, this is my truth, this is who I identify as, right? You're creating your own God. You're becoming your own idol because you have taken the truth, who is Yeshua, and put him aside and said, you are not my truth. I am my truth. Therefore, all the things that I do in my life, all my actions will be for me, my pleasure, right? We serve him because it's his pleasure. It's his pleasure. And when we serve him, remember, we'll go back and, not to have a long sidebar. When he told us how to live and what to do, called the Torah, it broke down to two things, and one of them was a two-parter, right? Love each other and love him. Not that hard, right? As a servant, he's not saying like, I want you to walk 100 miles, and I want you to carry this little solo cup and fill it with water and take it to that person 100 miles back and do that all day. That's how you serve me. That's not what he said. He said, love each other and love me. That's what he asked. That's it. Now, in Psalms, this is even defined a little bit further. So we have in Psalms 115, and I think did I skip one? No, we're not there yet. Oh, that was a preview. Okay, in Psalms 115:1, it says, not to us, Adonai, not to us, but to your name give the glory, because of your grace and truth. Why should the nations ask, where is their God? Our God is in heaven. He does whatever pleases him. Their idols are mere silver and gold made by human hands. They have mouths, but they can't speak. They have eyes, but they can't see. They have ears, but they can't hear. They have noses, but they can't smell. They have hands, but they can't feel. They have feet, but they can't walk. With their throats, they can't make a sound. And the people who make them will become like them, along with everyone who trusts them. So we're back to the information and the control, and now we've tied it in with idolatry. When you replace the truth, who is Yeshua, from your life, and you replace it with your truth, which is what you make up, you become your own idol, and you will become like them, along with everyone who trusts in them, where you become useless, right? It's kind of funny because Pastor Kenny was telling me I look like one of the people from that show, the chosen, which I'll be okay with that. Maybe he'll throw me a $5 bill for using my likeness, but anyway, it's one of those things where in that show they're talking to the person portraying Yeshua, and it's the father from the wedding where Jesus turned the water into wine and everything, and he says, he's talking about his kids want to follow Yeshua and go on these adventures with him and stuff, and he says, why do you ask so much? And in the show, the Yeshua turns and says, the people who believe in me, I ask a lot of them, but the people who don't, I don't ask anything. So if that doesn't tell you that he has a purpose for you, he has a mission for you, you have to have him as your truth, which is what he is, then you're useless. Useless. Right? Now, that's not the end-all, be-all. You can definitely go from useless to useful in a split second, right? But it takes a little bit of effort on your part and a lot of effort on God's part because we are stubborn people, right? So you can see how this kind of idolatry and self-worship, it makes a person irrelevant, right, in the world. The people I can identify as somebody who is 7 feet tall, but guess what? At the end of the day, I still have to go and get a chair if I want the cups on the top shelf. It doesn't matter what I identify as. That's the bare truth, right? It's irrelevant what the truths that people make up these days. It is absolutely irrelevant. Now the reason a lot of times people get in conversations with these folks, right? And I love them. Being in the military, you meet all kinds of people. You meet people who are Hindus. You meet people who are Muslims. You meet people who are Christians, people who are Christian Baptist, or people who are just agnostic. People don't believe anything. I'm an atheist, whatever, right? You meet Satanists. But you can't hate the person. You have to love the person, right? In the package of Peeps, the marshmallow things, the first one is just as good as the last one, right? So God loves everybody the same. The first one, just as good as the last one. The last one just needs a little more work, right? So the reason you can't speak facts to people who follow their own truth is because just like Yah, our Abba, will not tolerate idols and other gods. Matter of fact, I think he wrote that on a tablet of stone, right? Just like he won't tolerate you having another God with him, the absolute truth cannot exist in the same time and space as a false truth or lie. That's what we call them most commonly, right? And since we are made in his image, right, when we declare ourselves our own God, we can't exist in the same time and space as him. And so that's why sometimes when these conversations happen between you and an individual who is identified as their own God and their own truth, it doesn't matter how many facts you spit out at them and stuff, they're not going to hear it because your truth cannot exist in the same time and space as their truth, right? It becomes a competition for truth, right? And even if everything that you say disproves what they believe is their own truth, they still won't believe it, right? I'm sure we have all argued with people at some point in time where we absolutely knew something to be true and we said this is true and they were like, yeah, I don't believe that. And you're like, no, it's true. Like, look, here, I will do it in front of you to demonstrate that this is true. And they're like, nah, the stove is hot. No, it ain't. Why didn't you tell me it was hot? Gah, I did. I didn't believe you. Okay. So on more complicated terms, you can imagine some of those conversations, right? So I won't get into, I had something I was going to talk about how color and light actually work, but we won't get into that for the sake of time because I still have 59 pages to go. So now we're gonna get a little bit deeper here. Anti-truth, right? a.k.a. lies, a.k.a. not the truth, whatever you want to call it. So we have heard Pastor Jeff talk about the anti-Messiah or the Antichrist. We have heard people talk about them, right? Some people have a misinterpretation, and they think that the Antichrist is somebody who's going to come and be the opposite of Christ, but it's not. It is a fake replacement for Christ. So he's going to step in front of Christ and say, I am the Christ. Worship me, right? To take your mind off of the actual Messiah, right? And this is going to tie in a second when I talk about my dead fly cookies, right? So just like the anti-Messiah, there's an imposter presenting itself as anti-truth. It's a false truth that presents itself as the truth, right? And at times it can be very subtle and seem perfectly believable. And other times it's completely wacky and so ridiculous that it's easy to dismiss it as false. Like when a person dresses up like an animal and says, I am an animal. No, you're a manimal, right? That's pretty wacky. But a lot of times there are truths out there that are tainted just a little bit with anti-truth, right? One of them being the Sabbath is only for Jew people, right? I don't think there was a whole lot of Jews around when God observed the Sabbath himself, when he made it. There wasn't any Jewish, there wasn't any rabbis like, oh, hey, and God was just like, and I'm going to rest. There wasn't any Jews there to say anything. He just gave it to us. He set it apart, right? He gave it to us to give us some rest. So hopefully we rest ourselves. Now, over time, man has convoluted what truth is and even what we can call it, right? Anybody heard a term? This is kind of, maybe some of you have heard it. It's called misinformation or disinformation. Right? People use those terms all the time. Why do they use those terms? Why don't we just say, you're a liar, and that is a lie? It's because it makes it more palatable. It sounds better to say like, well, I might have misspoke, as opposed to if I was to be like, I lied to your face, right? One of them is more total. One of them sounds more powerful, right? But if I'm trying to get you to believe something, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of sugar in there. So you go, it's just a little bit of misinformation, right? And especially when there's a lot of money and power involved, they use those nice terms, right? As opposed to if you're just stand up and be like, misinformation, that was a bald-faced lie, and you hurt hundreds of thousands of people with it. Not just misinformation, right? But we try to make things more palatable, right, so that we don't sound like a big jerk. So now, the dead fly cookie theory, right? This is because the devil is the father of lies. He has to convince us to believe in his anti-truth. And so I use the analogy of dead fly cookies. If I give you a cookie and I was like, this chocolate chip cookie is delicious. It's probably it's the best. I eat them every day. They're good. There's no calories in them, right? Made with real ingredients. You probably eat it. Especially this crowd. I know I'm going to eat it, right? Now, if I told you this cookie is the most delicious cookie that you're ever going to taste in your entire life, chocolate chips, sugar, all of it, macadamia nuts, whatever you want in it, it's good, delicious, absolutely delicious. But there's a dead fly in the bottom of it. Are you going to eat it? No. There's a dead fly in it. Right? Now, this isn't always the analogy I use. I use something that's a little more gross, but for keeping it, okay on YouTube, it's a dead fly. You're not going to eat it. You're going to reject it because it's contaminated, because it is not what I said it was, right? Now, the difference comes whenever you ask. If you were into it enough to be like, man, that's great. That looks like a really great cookie. What's in it? And then I'm like, flour, sugar, chocolate chips, butter, olive oil, and a dead fly. You're going to be like, whoa, what was that last one? Yeah, I don't want it. I'm good. You can keep it. It's not good. Not worth it, right? But that's a lot of times that's what happens is we don't ask ourselves, what's in that? What is in that? This is being presented as truth. What's in it? And so we kind of fall prey to those things. So the difference is God gave us the truth, and he said, this is the truth. And then he gave us the ingredients. He gave us the ingredients, and then over time, obviously now we can look back and it's our history, but we can actually look back and we can verify those ingredients. It's real. It's real, right? So that's the way the devil gets people, is he introduces a little bit of lies, a little bit of lies, a little bit of lies, and then after time, the whole thing is a stinking lie, and everybody has fallen for it. And everybody's like, yeah, let's eat mercury, woo, right? In Proverbs 12:20, it says, deceit is in the hearts of those who plot evil. Keep that in mind. But for those advising peace, there is joy. And in Isaiah, when he's talking about the rebellious people, in Isaiah 39, he says, for this is a rebellious people. They are lying children who refuse to hear the Torah of Adonai. And in verse 10, he says, they say to the seers, do not see. To those visions who have visions, or to those who have visions, do not tell us the visions you have as they really are, but flatter us, fabricate illusions. Get out of the way, leave the path, rid us of the Holy One of Israel. Therefore, here is what the Holy One of Israel says. He says, because you reject his word, his word, trust, and you trust in extortion and rely on deceit, the sin will become for you a crack, bulging out high on a wall, showing signs it is ready to fall. Then suddenly, all at once, it breaks. So the people were asking for lies, right? They were wanting to just smooth it over and everything. And he said, okay, you want to do that? This is how it's going to end up, right? You all a bunch of cracks in the wall. So then we have to ask ourselves, why do people reject the truth? Boop. People reject the truth because it boils down to one thing: accountability, right? And with accountability comes judgment. You're going to be held accountable for what you do, then you're going to be judged on what you did, right? And the Bible says, now this is the judgment. The light has come into the world, but people loved the darkness rather than the light. Why? Because their actions were wicked. For everyone who does evil things hates the light and avoids it, so that his actions won't be exposed. But everyone who does what is true comes to the light, so that they all may see that his actions are accomplished through God. Because it's his glory. I don't get anything accomplished. I can only do things that he tells me to do and then gives me the strength or the boldness to go forth and do it, right? So people in general do not want to be held to a high standard because they believe a lie. It's too hard. It's not fun. It's not that bad, right? Those are the things that we tell ourselves because we don't want to be held accountable. Like, well, one cigarette's not bad, or one drink is not that bad, right? It's actually good for you. God actually told us to, have a little wine every once in a while. Yeah, but he didn't say Coors Light. He didn't say Bud Light. He didn't say drink half a bottle of vodka, just because that's your impression of what one drink is, right? So those are some of the anti-truths that Satan would have us believe, is that it's too hard, it's not fun, and that it's not that bad, right? So the more anti-truths that he can get you to buy in on, the further you get from the truth, because every anti-truth you put in front of yourself is getting you further and further and further from the truth, right? And just like Eve became as a god herself, right? Those are the words in the Bible, not my words. By serving your own truth, you become your own god, defining what you want to be as truth, and it becomes a self-repeating cycle. It's self-repeating. Just like truth, facts, information, it's a big cycle. You become your own truth, then you reinforce that, and then it just keeps going and going and going. right? And this is how the lost stay lost. They just keep making up their own truths, right? It's just like, when you're doing navigation, there is such a thing as a magnetic north, which is that's where the compass is pointing because it works on magnetics, right? And then there's true north, which is the North Pole, right? If you are using the wrong one with the wrong map, you're going to end up in the wrong place because it just keeps reinforcing itself, right? So just like matter and antimatter cannot exist in the same space at the same time, I don't know if anybody's ever actually done it. I don't think so because they can't create antimatter without using trillions of our dollars. I didn't know it was a money thing, but apparently it is. I thought it was more like an electron versus a proton thing, but I guess they're really expensive. But they will annihilate each other, right? So just like truth and anti-truth, only in that scenario, the truth will annihilate the anti-truth and throw it in the lake of fire at the end. Because he already said it. Starting in the book. It's in the back. Read it. So the only way to defeat anti-truth is with absolute truth. And with absolute truth comes salvation, shalom, which is peace, love, forgiveness, life, and your relationship with the Father. Who doesn't want any of those things? If you don't want any of those things, come talk to me offline. I will help you get fixed in your head, right? So in John 1, boop. In John 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And the same was in the beginning with God. All things that were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. It's a long way of saying he made everything. Nothing exists that he did not make, so there is nothing new under the sun. And in him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. The darkness doesn't understand the light. The anti-truth doesn't understand truth. People who are their own gods don't understand God, right? So here's how we beat this, right? And I don't mean we're going to beat people. Some of them probably could benefit from that, but here's how we beat anti-truth, right? Now, when Yah prepares a person's heart, he's not only preparing them to hear the message, he's preparing them to hear the truth, accept the truth, and then live the truth. So it's my job, it's your job, your job, your job. Jimmy Dale, it's your job too. I know you're a busy guy, but if you can pencil it in your schedule, it'd be great. In these last days, I think we're on the precipice of there are going to be a lot of people who are realizing that they've been believing a lie or following an anti-truth. And, not that's a whole nother sidebar there, but they're going to be realizing that they only have part of the truth. They only have the 8 commandments or the 9 commandments, right? And they're going to be looking for the truth, right? And they're going to realize that what they've been living is fake. It's false. It was wrong. To keep Pastor Jeff's thing going with the rapture, because I'm more of like a whenever God gets here is when he gets here. We're continue mission until he gets here. End of story. But if you're one of the folks that believes in a pre-thing where the rapture going to and you're not going to have any bad stuff happen to you, and when it doesn't happen, that reality is going to set in, and they're going to go, oh man, what else was wrong that I was believing? They're going to be looking for that truth. Some of them might give up completely, right? Their heart wasn't in it all the way. Some of them are going to be looking like, okay, well, hopefully the rest of the book is true, right? Only to find out that the part that they believed wasn't even in the book. It was a made-up thing, right? Information, power, control, all that stuff. So this is our prime moment. Our prime moment is gonna be when we bring Yeshua, who is the truth, to the forefront and make sure that we're living in his will so that his light will be seen amongst the darkness and it will be accepted by those who are searching. Because just like the darkness doesn't understand the light, if we are to be the light out in the world, the other people who are searching for the light will find us. They'll understand it. They'll accept it. And they'll realize, God having already prepared their heart, they'll realize this is the truth. This is the way. This is the life. Not us, but the message that we're bringing, right? So we have to make sure that we execute the Great Commission. And the 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." I'll save that for later. But something has to happen in that person's life for them to realize that. And something has to be there to fill that in so that there's not a vacuum created when the truth, the false truth, gets sucked out of their life. We have to be able to present the real truth and put that in there so that way it doesn't get replaced by something else that's fake and false. So that's kind of our mission. So in closing, this is just a short closing. Search through your life, search through all your beliefs, and look at how you measure them, right? How do you call this a truth? Weigh it against what is in his word. And then ask, is this his word or is this somebody's fabrication of what God said originally, right? But the purpose is to seek, to find, to have that relationship with him, to not just read it in the book and be like, oh, cool, that's what it says. Be like, God, is this really what it said? Or did Carl back in the day of King John or whatever, did he interpret it wrong? You'll find that you'll find little nuggets of wisdom in there, right? But weigh it against what is in the Torah and what Yah has put forth and see how it compares. And then ask yourself, is it your own truth or is it his truth? And that's how you find out what the truth is. So hopefully I have inspired you to look inward, outward, upward, downward, all words, and figure out what is real and what is not real. And in the grand scheme of things, if I can offer you just a little bit of comfort in case you're stressed out watching the news and stuff like that, if I can just offer you one thing, it doesn't matter what the news says. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what all the fake videos said, all the fake videos in the world. Because in the end, we are his people. And as long as we're living in his will, he's coming back for us. Not just the Jews, all of us that believe. And everybody else is going to be left behind. And by that time, it's too late. I hope not for them. But let's make sure we execute the Great Commission. So we do the. Yeah, you got the thing. Oh, okay. Yeah, you just do the pray over the kids. Okay, cool. Let me fold this up. Battery's dying. And that's the truth. All right, kiddos, come on up here. You got it? Okay, cool. Thanks, Dave. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and pray over the kids. Father, we come to you today and we thank you for the words of wisdom that you gave to me to share with your people, Father, and we just pray for these kids under this talit, Father, that you would keep the truth in their spirit, in their soul, in their minds, and in their hearts as they go forward. and that no anti-truths will ever be able to exist within them. We pray a hedge of protection about them as they go out each and every day. And we praise you and we thank you for them, and we ask your power and might be imbued in them, that they would grow up to be powerful men and women of God. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Yevarechecha Yehovah Ve'yishmerecha Yehovah Panav Alecha Vichunecha Yisa Yehovah Panav Elecha Veyasem Lecha
Jehovah, he who exists, know before you, presenting gifts, and will guard you with a hedge of protection. And Jehovah, he who exists, will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards you, bringing order, and he will provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. And Jehovah, he who exists, will lift up the wholeness of his being and look upon you, and he will set in place all you need to be whole and complete. May Jehovah grant all the desires of our hearts, fulfill all of our purposes and all of our petitions. May Jehovah hear from heaven, quickly answer all of our requests, save us in the day of adversity, and in the name of Yeshua the Messiah, defend us from our enemies, from poverty and from bondage. Shabbat Shalom.